Hello, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts. I'm your pet's ally. I hope I can get some of these questions answered for you and make this make a little bit more sense about all of the different things that we have available. So Becky's asking, and I think you all are a little confused, and I'm sorry I've not been able to make this clear, what's going on with the site. So let me read through the question, and the new app and blah, 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 blah. All right, so here's what we have available for you. You guys are all in this page, and so this weekly broadcast where I answer your more specific questions about cooking, quick health issue questions, things of that nature, that is going to absolutely continue. I made the promise that I would support you if you support me, and so I'm doing that. Now, the iPets Ally app, and this is where it gets a little bit more confusing. There is an app available, and when we launched it, we immediately realized there was a big problem as far as there's a whole nother set of credentials for you. You can use that app without logging in, and I talked to the developer actually last week. We need to sit down and work on a few more things to make it more useful. So just kind of belay that. We're going to relaunch in January, and it should be a bit more useful there. The whole point of that is that if you want access to, just some quick information, the most recent video, something of that nature, that's where you can find it. Now, the other thing that's confusing to you as well is there is the iPets Ally paid membership area. So with your CrockPet membership, you certainly get access to that, to all of the CrockPet goodies. And we do have a new cooking video coming soon. Hopefully the end of this week, the editing will be finished. And the other portion of that, and I'm sorry if you guys are not getting sound, I think this microphone just is not doing it. I see it bumping up, but it's kind of a bit intermittent. So I may have to swap mics, get a new one. But I'll put this, so this is the point of all of this. If you miss something or if it's glitchy, all of these videos are being recorded and then they get dumped onto my laptop. And what we're doing is taking those videos and getting them up to YouTube so that you've got access to all of them. And in the iPets membership area, what you'll be able to do is search for videos based on topics. And right now we're in process of developing a better set of tagging and categories and things of that nature so that if you put in a word, you actually end up getting what you're looking for. So for instance, a little bit later today, or in this broadcast, I'm going to talk about what to do when, Kelly's asking about her pups that aren't wanting to eat. So we'll talk about what to do, that kind of stuff. But you can also search for things like kidney disease right now. So broad topics, kidney cancer, liver disease, heart disease, things of that nature. We will get this refined to the point where you'll be able to put in something like early kidney disease, end-stage kidney disease, so that you can get the videos that are more specific for what you're looking for. On each of the video pages, there will be a transcript available. So you'll be able to copy and paste the specific information that's in that video that applies to what you're looking to support. Does that make sense? And then you'll have that handy for reference so you don't have to go digging back through things. Now, the other thing is that you will be able to, for many of the videos, if you're one of those folks that likes podcasts, you'll be able to download the audio file. So if you want to listen to it on the way to work, something of that nature, you can do that as well. And so we're, getting things rolling. I think this is going to be a wonderful asset for you because you can research, get the information you need very quickly. You don't have to look all over the Facebook page to find it. And then the other thing is that all of the blog posts are searchable. So for instance, Kathy was asking for the recipe for homemade treats, and I'll post that in a minute as well. But you'll be able to pull that up, search for treats, and boom, I think there were 5 articles that popped up. One on the specific recipe, and then another blog post on DIY dog treats. So the way this will end up serving you is giving you access to information more easily. And then I'm also going to be doing more teaching in that membership area once a week, and it will be on a Zoom presentation. And so what that means is that we're all hanging out on video, and then once I go through talking about whatever it is I'm teaching about for that week, then we'll be able to unmute you all, and we can actually have a conversation like, well, what about this? My dog's having this issue. And you can certainly listen to what I've got to say, but you guys have so much of a wealth of experience, and the way that you support each other, this is part of what I really love with this group. You take care of each other and you do awesome stuff. So yeah, it's an additional cost, but it helps me stay in business. Not everybody can afford to do a consultation. Supplement sales are great, but it takes a lot of money to run all of this stuff in the way that it needs to be done. I've got 2 new assistants on board who are hopefully going to be much better performers. I've kind of learned some tricks about working with virtual assistants, and I apologize for all of the difficulty that you may have experienced with getting orders on time and things of that nature with Melody. But Arjun and Michael are both they're sweet young men. They're very eager to make sure that you get the help that you need. So there's just email Dr. Ruth Roberts at drruthroberts.com, Michael's email address, and he's going to be handling more of customer support issues like, where's my order? And April can tell you that Amazon has been weird about shipping. For some reason, they've gone to this 1-day ship thing, but many of the orders are not going out from where my stuff is warehoused in Amazon for 3 or 4 days. As a result, Michael will do a much better job of making sure that you get tracking numbers so that you can answer your question in many cases. And if it's like still sitting in Amazon's warehouse, that's when, email him. He can poke him with a stick and see what's up. Arjun is going to be working more with getting you directed to the correct resources if you're having particular issues. And if you're working with me as a consulting client, then he'll be able to get that scheduled for you, so we no longer have to go through all this high-tech shenanigans, which has just been not fun and more difficult than it should be. It's supposed to be easy, and it's not. So Arjun will be scheduling directly for you, and however you prefer to communicate via a consultation, whether that's on a video chat, telephone call, WhatsApp, Skype, he'll get that all squared away for you. Many of you live outside the US, and so what we accept as sort of normal communication methods don't necessarily work for you. So WhatsApp and Skype are great additions if you're living internationally. And if I've got specific hours I'm trying to keep so that I actually take care of myself health-wise, but if those don't work for you, he'll be able to help get a time set up that does work. And these young men are in the Philippines, so bless their souls, they are working hard and at bizarre hours for the night, but that's unfortunately part of the deal there. So does that make more sense about what's going on with all these different areas? I hope so. I know it's a bit confusing, but the members area is 2 things. One is it helps me have some stable income so that I can afford to continue to offer you these services. And number 2, but really the most important reason, is that you can get the information you need without having to dig through this, that, and the other. And so that effort of getting everything uploaded, getting the transcripts, getting the audio files, that sort of stuff attached, that's what that's all about. So hope that helps, and let's jump into some of the questions. Oh, that's the other thing too. So let me copy. I'll put the link for the iPets Ally site in. And again, because you guys have been supporting me, you get 3 months for $1. And then after that, it's $9.99 a month or something like this. So I hope that's helpful. I'll put that link in after we finish the broadcast, because for some reason on this page, it won't let me add it into the eCam, won't let me add it into the comments that are here. So other questions that we've got. So Kelly is asking, she's saying she's at a loss because she's making the CrockPet meals and she thinks it's tasty, which is great. But she's got three dogs, and the two smaller ones, the Frenchies, refuse to eat it, and they still won't eat it. And so we don't want to, sometimes it takes time to change over. So Kelly, you've got kind of two approaches. One is, if they're really particular, what you can do is really dial back the veggies and even start with the cat starter recipe. And basically all that is the protein, the fat, and a cup of kale and I think a cup of butternut squash with the calcium to balance the protein and all of that good stuff. So you can, go back to what they will eat, because we don't want to create big issues, and we don't want to create weight loss to the point where they're ribby. We don't want to starve these guys to death, because that's going to encourage them to eat other things they should not, like rocks in the yard and things of that nature. So what I would suggest is dialing the recipe out. The things that tend to be taste killers for dogs are the beans and also the brassica species, and in specific broccoli. The brassicas that tend to have less of a flavor impact are bok choy. Kale can be a little dicey, so you want to go light with that one because it's a very intense dark green. So things like bok choy, cabbage, they tend to have much less taste impact. So see if that is helpful. And then, again, go back to what works for your guys. If that's going into a much reduced recipe, or going half and half with cooked food, or cooked food and either dry or canned food, many of you have to do that just because of the issues with sorry, my brain's about half fried today, with the issues of just keeping up with making enough food. So whatever you need to do that to make it work for you. But just kind of ease the Frenchies into it. The other thing is that they're already kind of gassy creatures, and so if you find that that may be part of what's going on, is that it's uncomfortable for them to eat when they've got a ton of gas going on. So see if that helps as well. The beans tend to make things gassier, and then the broccoli can also create a lot of gas as well. So I pulled up the broadcast for today. There's the iPets Ally membership link. And so I hope that's helpful. And I think that, Kelly, you got a lot of great advice. Now, and I think folks pointed out correctly that kitties, you cannot starve them because you will put them into something called hepatic lipidosis. So you just had to, keep rolling with it. So start with what they will eat. Ideally convert cats from dry food to cooked food, and then from cooked food to canned food, or sorry, I'm saying that sideways. Dry food to canned food, and then canned food to cooked food. And that process can take quite some time. There are some dogs that are very taste and texture sensitive, and so you may have to do the same thing with your Frenchie. So I hope that helps. Let's see. And then Kathy was asking about the jerky, and I think a lot of you got her some information, but again, here is the jerky recipe, if I can type. So there's that, and I think that's great that you're making treats for them, Kathy. I know you had to drag a lot of stuff back with you. So check that out. April, beautiful batch. I swear, we'll work on this, but I'd love to do a cookbook with you guys and then see if we can benefit a shelter or some organization that everybody's really behind. So beautiful stuff: pork, whiting, purple and yellow, cauliflower, broccoli, green beans, Kombucha squash, that one I'm not familiar with, carrots and quinoa. And then Bettina was asking about fennel and cranberries. So yeah, I mean, you can use anything that's in there. So cranberries are great. They're, full of vitamin C and lots of phytonutrients. Fennel is a really interesting plant. So the seeds most of us are familiar with. As far as using them in curries and things of that nature. The actual bulb, if you've not tried that before, if you like that sort of fennel anisey flavor, I used to love to just shred that stuff up and marinate it with some lime juice and salt, and it makes a really yummy treat. But certainly you can use it. And it's great to help ease the digestion. So licorice flavor in Chinese medicine is a harmonizer. So you can certainly use some fennel. And because you're cooking slow cooking, you can use actually a lot of the whole plant. So a lot of the stalk, and then also the leafy, dilly looking stuff. So definitely go for that. Now Miyoshi is asking about a vegetarian version for dogs. And Miyoshi, I can't really recommend that. What I typically see is dogs that have been on vegetarian or vegan food for a long period of time. It ends up, I end up seeing liver enzyme elevations. I think that they are true omnivores just as we are, but I think it's difficult going with just plain vegetarian, because ultimately it ends up taking the carbohydrate amount way, way high as well. Now, having said that, one of my teachers at the Chi Institute, Dr. Roger Clemens, was a neurologist, and so he liked to use tofu for brain health because it kind of looks like the brain. So the idea is like feeds like, right? So I would try that, but I'm not sure why you're wanting to go vegetarian in specific. Cats, definitely, you cannot go vegetarian or vegan. They are obligate carnivores, and it just does not work well. There are many vegetarian dry foods available. And again, you're feeding lower quality products. So the deal with soy long term is that it's an estrogen mimic. And so if we create estrogen dominance, this is essentially what's causing atypical Cushing's disease. So again, I can't recommend doing this long term. If you want to cycle in some tofu, you would substitute it pound for pound for the animal proteins, but I'd be really cautious with that. I've just seen that create a lot of health issues. You can also do appropriate combining of rice and beans or corn and beans. And then, you get into to make sure that you have a full complement of the necessary amino acids. So just be cautious with that, Miyoshi. I think it just seems to backfire. Now, May is asking about two things. One is her last big batch. She thinks she puts in 26 cups of veggies instead of 21 cups. And May, that's okay. I mean, you'll see in the new video I made, there's 8 chicken breasts instead of 7. That would make the 3.5 pounds for the recipe. So I'm just going to add in some extra veggies to make that up. So any recipe is, with the exception of baking, is meant to be, within limits, sort of adjusted based on what you've got going in there. So that's perfectly fine. All good stuff. And then you were asking about turmeric for dogs, and I think you probably heard me say on the other broadcast, the curcumin, which is the active ingredient in the turmeric, that's worked well for many, many pets. But but for me right now, the actual dried turmeric root is working much better. So what I would suggest is experiment with it. I think if you add a lot more to the diet itself, that you run the risk of creating a turnoff with taste. And so there are tons of recipes for turmeric paste out there, and essentially that's combining turmeric with a little bit of honey or an oil to make it a little bit more palatable, and that seems to work better. And I think many of you have experience with that, and you can offer it to your pups as treat. They like the coconut oil. In addition, the turmeric powder is much better absorbed with an oil, and ideally black pepper. So piperine, are you familiar with that? Is used to help increase absorption of many supplements. For me, I'm actually sensitive to black pepper, but it seems to be working just peachy as a tea with either ghee or coconut oil, and then a little bit of salt for me for flavoring. So if the coconut oil trick isn't quite enough, then you could add some honey in just to kind of make it go from there. And then what's the dose? I think you just start slow and work for tolerance. So I think if you can approach something like 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric per day for a dog up to say 20 pounds, and then add 1/4 teaspoon for each 20 pounds as a starting dose, that's probably a great place to go. Now on humans, the doses are safe up to 6 teaspoons per day. So if we work that backwards, so for a 50-pound dog, that would be roughly 2 teaspoons a day total as a max dose. Does that make sense? So the potential side effects that I'm aware of are mostly related to GI issues. It dries you out, constipation, also the opposite, vomiting, diarrhea, things of that nature. So I hope that's helpful. And somebody pointed out on the webpage for Certipet, having raisins up there with the turmeric, not such a great idea. I think probably they just snagged a photo somewhere, and that's what it's like. And then Anne's asking about soaking kidney beans before cooking. You can certainly do that, and that does remove phytates and things of that nature, the anti-nutrients we're concerned about, but then again, so does the slow cooking in the crock pot. If your dog is really sensitive to developing gas and things of that nature, I think that's probably a good step to take, just because it's going to reduce the amount of gas produced. And then lastly, in the comments on the site, Donna was asking about our cat Addie still having diarrhea. And she started her on pumpkin, which is working well. And yes, absolutely can be the beans. So Donna, if you go back and look at the membership area, there are recipes with beans and without beans. I would take out the beans, and then I would also look at taking out the brassica veggies, because again, they can create a lot of discomfort GI wise. And if you're not using one already, I would use a probiotic. The Therabiotic or the CrockPet Probiotic Max. So again, this is it's the same thing as the Therabiotic, but to avoid the manufacturer shenanigans, we put a label on it. When we ship it to you, it will say the Claire Therabiotic product. But I would use that. That's been really great as far as providing a really broad spectrum probiotic along with a little bit of prebiotic. Now, one consideration is that if she's having diarrhea, you may want to use a probiotic without prebiotics in them, because that can create some real havoc. And the HMF, the Genestra HMF 50, I think, if you go back to the members area and look at the GI support protocol, you'll see a link for that. It has Saccharomyces boulardii, which has been very useful in helping to restore gut balance. It is a fungal organism, so rarely we'll see pets have issues with that. But it also gets the bifidobacteria, the lactobacillus, all of that stuff in there. So I hope that's helpful, Donna. And then looks like we got a couple of other issues. So let's see. Miyoshi is saying she's now not a member. And Miyoshi, what I would do is email, bear with me a second here, Michael at that email address. I'm working on getting the boys up and running with a phone number too, so you can get that going. But for right now, Michael's available, and he should be able to help you get sorted out. And again, bear with us a little bit. We're still in the training process, so it may be a wee bit later this afternoon. And just let him know what specifically you're trying to log into and what it's creating issues with. And let's see, and then somebody, I'm sorry, eCam doesn't show me this all the time, but somebody's using Castor and Pollux Organics. And, you know, to be honest with you, I kind of quit following what dry food is better, what isn't, that kind of stuff. And what I would suggest is check out dogfoodadvisor.com. That's always a good place to start doing research on all of this. So the thing you want to look for is how much of that diet is carbohydrate. And with the grain-free diets, particularly if you have a breed like the Golden Retriever that is more sensitive to that type of diet, I would avoid it. And so the deal is that the grain-free diets are still high carb, but the carbohydrates are beans, often garbanzo beans, kidney beans, other things like that. And I think what's happening, the reason that these pups have developed dilative cardiomyopathy is because the anti-nutrients sort of prevented absorption of all of the good stuff. So I would check that out. That's always a good place to start doing research. A lot of you like Akana and Origin, just because it's a really great way to get the a higher protein diet in there, and then you can always kind of balance it out. Great. So Susan, good to hear that they recommended it. Yep. Let's see. And Aaron is asking, great. So keep checking on Dog Food Advisor. Are you all aware of any other website that reviews dry food on a regular basis? I think he's gotten a little bit more commercial. I mean, he's kind of making a living too, right? Because he's doing a terrific amount of research on all this stuff. Let's see, Erin's asking about needing to do an anesthetic for Mongo, and because he just is not working. He's not believing in the non-anesthetic dental cleaning. So is there any food or supplements you can do before or after to help him get over the anesthesia? And Erin, there's a couple of things I would do. One is, and you're a vet tech, so again, make sure that that the vet is using the best possible anesthetic protocol. So meaning no acypromazine, please. So the way I like to do it in practice was propofol, and then morphine I think is on back order, so now they're having to use hydromorphine as sort of the thing that smooths the stuff out, and then either isoflurane or ideally sevoflurane gas, because the recovery from that protocol is so quick. And then what you're going to need to do is ideally probably not before anesthesia, because we don't want his liver working faster, because that's going to make the anesthetic potentially more rocky. But this is a situation where I would go ahead and use milk thistle for a week or so afterwards, and encourage a lot of water consumption to help flush out the hydromorphone. But frankly, so the upside of propofol is its massive effect is gone within 7 minutes. It's out of the body completely in 24 hours. Same thing with sevoflurane gas or isoflurane. They're breathing it off very quickly. So really the only thing we're having to deal with is the hydromorphone or the whatever sort of sedative it's using. So the other thing is if they use an antibiotic, and there's pluses and minuses. So you want to, even if it's a single dose at anesthesia, you do want to repopulate the gut with a good probiotic. You're using tons of probiotic food, so that's great. But for this situation, you may want to go with a big gun, so to speak. And let's see, a couple of other questions. So Karen's asking about what's a good way to keep weight on the keto diet. And Mr. Handsome Hank is down to 45 pounds, which is close to a problem. This is the difficulty with keto. I mean, really, because to add more calories, you've got two options. One is either more protein, and then the second is more fat. So we want to keep those in appropriate ratios. So to start with, the keto recipes are at about 65% fat. And for humans, most of the time they like us to be at 70 to 80% fat in the diet. So you can start with adding some additional fat to each meal and see if that's sufficient to get his weight back up. So Hank's, I think, 60 pounds or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. And what I would do is just start with a 1 teaspoon of something like coconut oil, or whatever you're using in that batch. So grapeseed oil, avocado oil, ghee, things of that nature. We want to try to avoid hammering on the coconut oil because it has been associated with pancreatitis in dogs chronically. So that's part of the reason to rotate the oil. So start there. If that's not quite cutting it, I think you could safely move him up to 2 tablespoons per meal. But you do want to do that gradually so that we don't create what Dave Asprey likes to call disaster pants, because that's just not fun in a dog. And so do that gradually and over the course of, say, 2 weeks to make sure things are getting squared away easily. If that's not working, then what you're going to need to do is simply feed more food volume in addition to that 2 tablespoons of oil that you're adding to the diet. And then Aaron's asking about kombucha, and yeah, they can drink kombucha, and some dogs love it, and a lot of them I've seen are like, So you're right. The fermentation process seems to take out all of the caffeine, and I don't know. Let me know how that works out. I don't. There's a big, and again, I'm sort of stuck being keto, and I also have to avoid potentially moldy foods. So teas are made by fermenting the tea leaves, and so black tea is more fermented than green tea is more fermented than white tea. So kind of watch that. If you find they're more reacty or allergy issues pop up, then that may not be a great issue for them. And it sounds like you're making them relatively low sugar. So much of the bottle of kombucha is like drinking a soda, and it's like, well, what's the point of that? So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's what I've got for you this week. Any other questions before I jump off here? I think we got you all covered, and you are all welcome. So I hope that all makes sense about the paid membership area and what's going on with that versus what we're doing currently in this group. But my goal is to serve you and to continue to do that. This is a way, if financially you're a little strapped, this is a way for you to get more information more easily, and go from there. And Denise, can dogs consume black pepper with turmeric? Yes, but I would go a little bit lighter with it than you would for yourself, just because, again, part of it's going to be the taste issue. So if it's too spicy, a lot of dogs are going to be like, no. So, but many of you have used, golden paste, just mixing up turmeric with coconut oil and then, zipping out a little spoonful there. So until next week, many thanks, and keep plugging away, keep supporting each other. I just love that you are able to do that and help each other out, and you bring so much wisdom to others. So thanks for sharing. Until next week, remember, your pet's best health starts in the bowl. Take good care.